Welcome to Economics Made Easy. Today, I'm going to discuss an incredibly important paper in economics that helped lay a solid foundation for the entire discipline. This paper is titled Uncertainty, Evolution and Economic Theory, authored by Armen Alchian, and it was published in the Journal of Political Economy in 1950. But why is this paper so crucial? You may have heard this argument before. Economics is built on the assumption that humans are rational. It assumes that people act rationally, but in reality, humans are often irrational. So sometimes economic theory is right, and sometimes it's wrong. When people are rational, it works. When they're irrational, it doesn't. This debate has been around for a long time. Two famous economists had a similar discussion and even published it in economics journals. One of them, Richard Lester, conducted research and found that the way entrepreneurs made decisions didn't always match economic theory. For example, when employee wages went up, the prices of their products didn't change much. Instead, it was changes in supply and demand that had a bigger impact on prices. Sometimes, even when wages went up, entrepreneurs didn't reduce their workforce, meaning their responses to cost changes were not as expected. According to Lester, entrepreneurs don't always make decisions based on economic optimization principles. He argued that marginal analysis, as presented in economic theory, doesn't always reflect real-world decision-making. On the other hand, the more famous economist Fritz Machlup defended marginal analysis. He argued that while people may not consciously apply economic theory when making decisions, they are, in fact, unknowingly following the principles of optimization. He gave the example of someone driving a car. They might speed up, slow down, change lanes, or overtake another vehicle, but they're not consciously calculating anything. Yet, in doing so, they're still unconsciously following optimization principles. The debate was about whether entrepreneurs are actually holding a supply and demand chart when making decisions, or whether their decisions follow optimization principles unknowingly. At this point, a young professor named Armen Alchian, freshly back from military service and a graduate of Stanford University, heard about this debate. He thought to himself, why is economics discussing such low-level stuff? If all economics discussions are going to be this trivial, I might as well quit and go back to being a soldier. Back then, Alchian was young and outspoken. He privately told his students that both economists had valid points, but also some errors. His perspective was different, and after his students spread his thoughts to other professors, one of them, Stephen Enck, suggested Alchian write it down. Alchian was skeptical, saying his ideas weren't anything revolutionary, but Enck insisted, at least for the sake of teaching. So Alchian wrote his thoughts down, and Enck encouraged him to submit it for publication. Alchian sent the paper to the Journal of Political Economy. Soon, the editor, none other than Milton Friedman, responded saying that with a few modifications, the paper would be published. Alchian's simple lecture-style paper was published in 1950, and from that point on, it became one of the most cited papers in economics, uncertainty, evolution, and economic theory. So, what exactly was Alchian's argument? The earlier economists argued whether people are rational and whether they calculate optimally. One said, I don't see them calculating, while the other said, they're unknowingly calculating. Alchian, however, argued that the world is full of uncertainty. From a statistical perspective, as long as uncertainty exists, we can't calculate a precise optimal solution, but only an optimal probability range. For example, if there are two investment options, one high risk, high return, and the other low risk, low return, which is better? Logically, they could be considered equivalent. You can't say one is definitively superior. In real life, optimality doesn't exist. What people are really after is survival, not optimization. Alchian argued that economics should focus on the conditions for survival. How does a person, organization, or even an institution survive? What conditions are necessary for survival? This has nothing to do with whether people are rational or not. He gave an example: a group of people opening gas stations. One opens it in their backyard, another on top of a mountain, and a third by accident places it on the side of the road. Who survives? It's the one who accidentally placed the station by the roadside. Is that person smart? Do they have a plan? Does it matter? No. As long as they ended up in the right spot, they'll survive. He gave another example: a group of people trying to escape from Chicago, each choosing their own route. From an outsider's view, there's only one route that will allow someone to escape, and that's the route that happens to have gas stations along the way. Others, regardless of how they thought things through, would fail to leave Chicago. Thus, economics cares about the conditions for survival. Under what conditions do people survive? And how does survival change when those conditions change? It's not about whether the person is rational or not. Alchian went on. A tree growing toward the sun will have denser leaves on that side, and the side facing away from the sun will have fewer leaves. Are the leaves rational? Did they consciously choose to grow where the sun is? We don't know, but what matters is the rule. The side facing the sun grows denser leaves, and that's what economics cares about. Whether or not the leaves are rational is irrelevant. In this way, Alchian provided economics with a solid foundation. What it cares about has nothing to do with whether people are rational, what they think, or their intentions. You might say, Alchian's theory isn't that new. Isn't this just Darwin's theory? Alchian himself acknowledged this. He said, look at Darwin. He's saying the same thing. Similarly, if we change the rules, we can predict different outcomes. For example, if we changed the rules of basketball and required players to wear high heels, you'd predict that the true basketball star wouldn't be Michael Jordan anymore, but possibly someone like Lin Chi-Ling. Alchian's paper is one I revisit every year when I teach. Each time, I discover new insights. For example, many schools invite successful alumni to share their success stories with current students. But I often wonder if the stories are true, and the juniors follow their steps exactly. Will they succeed? Probably not, because the circumstances have changed. On the other hand, if we ask those who failed to come back and share their experiences, it might be just as enlightening. The only issue is that those who failed have probably disappeared into the crowd by now. Economics is concerned with the conditions for survival. Whether a person, an organization, or even a system survives depends on a variety of changing conditions and situations, not on whether people are rational. Here is Economics Made Easy, bringing you authentic economic thinking.